Snehal, thanks for being with us today, and thanks for giving us an update.
Dave, it's a pleasure to be joining you.
It's been quite a year for Greenwich LifeSciences. Please give us an overview of your first year as a public biotech company and your focus on preventing the recurrence of metastatic breast cancer.
First of all, we'd like to thank our stockholders and breast cancer patients for their support this first year. The response has been overwhelming, and it drives us every day to start the Phase 3 trial for GP2. GP2 therapy is delivered to breast cancer patients diagnosed as HER2 positive or HER2 3+, and then they undergo surgery. And then they have to wait 5 years to see if the breast cancer comes back. So the idea is after surgery, is they get Herceptin or Kadcyla. And we saw an immune response peaking at about 6 months. So you put all this together, and our goal is to reproduce this Phase 2 data in a Phase 3 trial.
50% of those recurring metastatic patients don't respond to Herceptin or the Kadcyla, but they do respond to your drug, correct?
Yes, by combining with Herceptin-based drugs, we have the potential to address all patients who are likely to recur.
What do the competitive drugs look like in breast cancer, and how do they compare to yours?
There are many products on the market and in development, but none have shown this type of effectiveness with no safety issues when combined with Herceptin. None of the products will be competing with us directly, as we are able to work with all of them and help to keep recurrence rates low.
And how big is the market for your drug, GP2?
We like to compare our product to Herceptin, which has a global market of about $7 to $8 billion, including Kadcyla, which is a form of Herceptin. So the setting in which we're treating patients where we're trying to prevent the breast cancer from coming back, that market is about $1 to $2 billion and could be up to $3 billion for Herceptin and Kadcyla. So if we're going to be treating synergistically with these products, and we're going to price ourselves slightly higher, the market for Herceptin or Herceptin-based products will also grow.
Well, this data looks very promising. Is 0% recurrences common?
This kind of effectiveness with no major side effects is very uncommon. That's the excitement. In our first indication, we expect to target about 17,000 new patients, which could save about 1,500 to 2,000 lives. Our goal is to protect these women from the recurrence of metastatic breast cancer, which can be deadly.
Update us on your plans to start the Phase 3 clinical trial.
GP2 has been filled in vials, and we're waiting for release testing that will release the vials to the clinical sites. The final results from the manufacturing over the past 2 years are being shared with the FDA. The protocol is now finished and being shared with clinical sites and the FDA. We have designed an interim analysis that will allow us to look at the data after half of the expected recurrences have occurred. We're working directly with multiple clinical sites now on contracting, budgeting, and timing for initiation of the sites and for enrollment of our first patient.
Do you have sufficient capital to reach the data readout for the Phase 3 trial?
So we've raised $36.5 million through the IPO and follow-on in the past year. We've been public for a year, and during that year, we've been one of the best performing IPOs if you divide the current share price by the IPO offering price. Before the IPO, we funded the Phase IIb trial ourselves after we licensed GP2 from the US military. So the money that we raise in our first year should be able to take us through the interim analysis of the Phase 3 trial, through the data readout, and the filing of a BLA with the FDA for potential conditional approval of GP2. We may need to raise capital in the future, or we may choose to do so opportunistically, and that would be if we wanted to add another asset or do some other trial around GP2, such as considering treating patients on diagnosis and not waiting until after surgery, going head-to-head against some of the other drugs that are currently approved that are not as effective as our product and more toxic. Treating the patients who have a low chance of recurrence, where we may have a chance to make a difference because of our effectiveness. We're going after the low HER2s or the other HER2-expressing cancer.
Describe some of the recent big pharma transactions. What is the possibility of your partnering with big pharma?
Yes, there's some very large transactions that occurred this past year. For example, Gilead acquired Immunomedics for $21 billion. Merck partnered with Seagen for about $5 billion for 2 drugs. Genentech Roche partnered with Vasabody for about $700 million. Seattle Genetics partnered with China's Remgen for about $2.6 billion. And Genentech Roche did another partnership just recently with Adaptimmune for about $3.3 billion. So these are all breast cancer products or immunotherapy products, like what we have with GP2. So as we start the Phase 3 trial and we trend towards the interim analysis, we would expect to be exploring transactions like this, hopefully. There's nothing that can be guaranteed. Trends in our industry for breast cancer and these types of immunotherapies are very good. And these are all transactions that occurred in this past year.
What does the addition to the Russell 2000 index mean for GLSI?
It is another validating event. We should see greater institutional investors in Greenwich and more analyst coverage. At present, we have both analysts with price targets in the $75 to $80 range versus our $40 to $50 price. And we expect more analysts to initiate coverage in our second year. The other benefit of being added to the Russell 2000 is they've purchased a large number of our shares, and that reduces our available float.
What are some key milestones investors can expect in the next 6 to 12 months?
So some of the events that we expect in the coming year will be the completion of the manufacturing of GP2, the release of the vials that are already filled and shipped to the clinical sites. Then we should start to enroll patients, probably beginning at Baylor College of Medicine, and we'll begin the Phase III trial. In the Phase III trial, it is an open label trial for the other HLA types, not the HLA2. So we'll start to have additional data on whether we're seeing an immune response and effectiveness in other HLA types as we start to enroll patients in the third arm.
And what kind of response are you receiving from clinicians and patients?
We're kind of surprised at the response we're getting from both clinicians and patients. We had MD Anderson leading the Phase II trial. Now we have Baylor leading the Phase III trial, and Professor Ramawi will be the global PI. We now have dialogue underway with additional sites and clinical networks. And patients are constantly contacting us. They started contacting us on December 9, 2020, when they saw the data. And it's continued at a steady flow. As we announce more data, we get more contact. But I believe as we start this trial, we'll start to see that even increase more. Many patients are from overseas also, where the standard of care is not the same. Where our approach and our technology may be able to help these patients leapfrog all of the other expensive drugs and less safe drugs that they can't even afford. So we're looking forward to initiating the trial and continuing our dialogue with both clinicians and patients.
It looks like you have an exciting year coming up. Snehal, thank you for the update.
Thank you very much, Dave. It's my pleasure.